sec. Go.
Welcome back to Hoops Lounge. My name is Mark Griffin, a.k.a. Montreal Mark. I'm joined by my man Sporting Phil Boylo. How you doing, my friend?
Fantastic today. I had a great morning this Father's Day. Had a breakfast with my dad, so getting all the family ties in there and just getting in a good spot. After a big breakfast, I'm ready for the game tonight. We're looking at Game 5. And you know what? We want to say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We all know they work hard and have raised some great kids in there. How are you doing yourself?
I'm doing great, man. I mean, it's too bad Golden State's not playing today. They've got two father and son combos, Steph Curry and Del Curry, and Klay Thompson, his dad, Michael Thompson, the NBA connection going back in the day. So, but they're not playing today. And so basically, today is episode 11. It's we're on Blog Talk Radio, and we're on Google Hangout, so we're doing the vodcast and podcast thing using technology. And today we're going to do NBA Finals, as you mentioned. Also, we're going to try to get to the Doc Rivers Celtics-Clippers scenario, and as well, if we have time, NBA returning to Montreal. So, I mean, we got a lot of stuff. We're jam-packed.
Power-packed show.
Absolutely. And so tonight, pivotal Game 5, but in the last week, we've had 3 insanely amazing NBA Finals games. Let's start with game number 2. What were your thoughts of the Miami blowout?
Well, it was interesting, right? Because I was watching the first game, and I was like, is San Antonio going to be able to deal with their athleticism? And then game 2 came, and I was like, have the strings finally come out of the bag? You know, is Miami just going to run away with this? I was, you know what, this whole series, I've been a little disheartened in the consistency of the San Antonio Spurs and their turnovers. I mean, we saw what happened with Indiana and their turnovers. They got destroyed by Miami, and you can't repeat that. And we saw that being repeated in Game 2. I mean, for Greg Popovich's team to have that many turnovers in a game, I thought that was telltale. It was a close game until that destructive run at the end where LeBron James and co. just really took over. I think this series has really come down to 2 things: turnovers and poor shot selection, almost on both teams.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing for me in that game, too, is, we'll get to the block in a second, but LeBron James was not having a great game until that third quarter. He was playing mediocre at best. The rest of the guys were playing great, and then he got into kind of king mode, and then that insanely great block he had there on Tiago Splitter. What were your thoughts on the block heard around the world?
First of all, I'm thinking that Tiago Splitter is the new Sean Bradley for posterized blocks, weirdly enough. People were giving Tiago Splitter kind of an out there, saying he's not an athletic guy, he's there more for his passing and such, but it was brutal. Anytime you're close to 7 foot and you get blocked by a small forward, power forward, it's a little bit embarrassing. It was a huge play. I think it was a momentum shifter for the Heat. LeBron James heavily criticized his whole career. And, having some weird moments in these finals, but that was definitely, I think, they've often said how that team works is it starts with their defense, they swarm, they get a lot of blocks. Dwayne Wade and LeBron James, for a 2-3 combination, get a ton of blocks. And it often, kicks off that fast break. And as we saw in Game 2, when they were able to generate that consistent fast break at the end of the game there, which came from, as I said, terrible shot selection on San Antonio's part. Just, some shots that they couldn't have made. They didn't force it inside. Manu Ginobili's kind of disappeared this whole playoff series. And every time you miss, Miami was just running down. And Miami is, if not the most athletic, a top 3 athletic team in the league. And you can't let them run like that. So as much as I thought it was a big blowout, a lot of it stemmed from that crushing run. And what the Spurs had done really well before that was limit Miami's runs. I thought that was key.
Yeah, and for me, a lot of conversation the last few days about that block and where it stands kind of in finals lore and in terms of blocks in the season. I mean, me personally, I look at the Roy Hibbert block on Carmelo Anthony a few weeks back. That essentially won a game. And it was a 7'2" guy blocking a 6'8" guy who was, one of the best players on the planet. So for me, you have to put that as the best block of the year. In terms of athleticism, LeBron James at 6'8", being able to do what he does, that block he had on George Hill earlier in the playoffs, he can do it all. And he set the tone, as you said. He sets a tone for how Miami's playing in the series with that block. The actual sound of that block, was just like the guttural, just volleyball esque
strength, right? He went up and just said, "No, you will not do this now."
Yeah, and he said, after the game, he was quoted saying, LeBron was saying, I knew I was going to end up on SportsCenter one way or another when I went up for that. So, it worked out for them. It set the tone for the series, and then all of a sudden, going into Game 3, you think Miami has, the upper hand, but no.
Well, you think they have the upper hand, but you're going into San Antonio, right? Tough place to play. It was tied 2-2. 1-1, I apologize. And then San Antonio just puts it on. They don't, but I hate to say I called it, but Greg Popovich is not going to allow 2 embarrassing games in a row.
No.
And it's funny because all the talk is happening how Miami hasn't lost a game in a row in how many days or years now or months. It's been a long time.
January.
But since January. So yeah, I mean professional sports, that's a decade, right?
Right.
But they're just not able to keep it going. But San Antonio came back. They hit a lot of threes, and we're seeing the difference. Game 1 and Game 3, their three-point shooting was really on par. But to get those open looks, you need the inside presence. You need Duncan Splitter to get enough touches to be able to kick it back out. I mean, at the end of Game 3 when they were just lighting up and Gary Neal was just superhuman, I mean, they were getting some open looks. Let's be honest. That was nice to see T-Mac back in the game, to be honest.
Yeah, I wanted him to dunk there, by the way.
Yeah, like that last play of the game, I was like, he should have taken it. He passed up the last shot. But at the same point, their inside game, I think, is what was lacking. In Game 4, we saw how they were taking poor shots inside, so it wasn't allowing their outside to continue. And the story has to be, even though they won that game, where's Manu Ginobili? Yeah. I mean, the fact that he's being outplayed every game by Gary Neal and Danny Green, I mean, it's nothing to take away from them. But Manu needs to step up. It can't just be, at this point, a very gimpy Tony Parker and a 37-year-old Tim Duncan leading the way. They need consistent help. I mean, Danny Green's been a huge surprise, and Kawhi Leonard's been amazing. But I think it's that consistency.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give you a stat right here. This is from the NBA changed the format of the finals back in 1985 to the 2-3-2 series. And since then, when the series has been tied up at 1 game apiece going into the 3rd game, the winner of Game 3, this is how pivotal Game 3 has won 12 of the last 13 series.
So almost a clean sweep at that point.
Yeah, and so the Spurs won Game 3. So historically speaking, it set the tone for them to win this series. Whether or not that happens or not, we will soon see. But you have to keep that in mind.
Well, I think a lot of that is going to depend on tonight. I mean, you can't go back to Miami down 3-2 and have the last 2 games in Miami. Let's be frank about this.
Yeah, I mean, tonight, as they say, it's the most pivotal of all. And we'll get to that in a second, but let's do Game 4 first. Okay, so there's a guy, he plays for Miami. I didn't know that he still played for Miami, but his name's Dwayne Wade.
Yeah, he just decided to show up, and his best play was when King James was on the bench at the end there. It was a fairly close game, then Wade just took over. It seemed like he was taking every shot and making every shot. His dunks, he had reach, and they were saying he was playing gimpy all series, and where's this guy? It doesn't seem to be having any knee problems. I mean, him walking away after that dunk, I don't know if you noticed, but he looked like he was still suffering a bit. Like, I think he's definitely dealing with pain.
Yeah.
But he's super game. His jump shot was there, and a lot of that comes from the strength in your legs. I don't know if he had a couple of nice cortisone shots there. Maybe just called up Steph Curry or
flew to Germany.
Yeah, in very short order. Who knows what happens? But he was definitely on the ball. And you know what? When Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh and LeBron James are on the same page, they're almost impossible to beat. And you know what? Again, their guards. I think Norris Cole and Mario Chalmers don't get enough credit. Norris Cole was a little bit colder, but Mario Chalmers was there. And what killed them? How do you let Mike Miller take so many open shots?
Yeah.
He's one of the easiest guys in the league to guard. Can barely move, and he's one of their best shooters. Him or James Jones, it's why Shane Battier being open for threes makes a little more sense. At least he's quicker. But you have to play man-on-man. I realize it's brutal with LeBron James and Dwayne Wade, but you can't allow guys just gimmies, and you know they're going to make it. That's all. Look, if Mike Miller couldn't hit a 3, he would not be in the league right now. So you know he's got to be pretty good at that, right?
Well, I think one thing that stood out to me is Miami, that was an absolute must-win game for Miami. I mean, they would have been down 3-1. It would have been dead in the water for them. So for me, health aside, I think Dwayne Wade kind of looked inside himself and said, look, I'm 31 years old. I'm not the same player I used to be, but if we don't win this game, I may never have a shot at a ring again. So
Yeah.
he stepped his game big time. And another interesting thing I have to point out is that Birdman did not play a single minute in that game.
Yeah, I think their confidence in Chris Birdman Anderson is kind of waving these days. Well, especially when they're playing a lot of small ball, because they decide to play LeBron almost full time at the 4, which allows Chris Bosh to start, and then Haslam backs him up, right? So it's kind of that 3-man rotation of Haslam, Chris Bosh, and LeBron James. So Birdman kind of gets squeezed at that point. I think Birdman had his points, but I think he was more effective in the Indiana series. I don't think that San Antonio will fall for those same kind of plays, and they'll make him earn it. And Chris Birdman, when he's open, fine, he'll make open shots, but it's not like he's a threat from 15 feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think what they're trying to do is open up those lanes for LeBron and Wade, as they always do. Like, that's why Chris Bosh takes all these 20-footers, because if he was on another team, he would be attacking the basket, but you can't have 3 guys consistently attacking the basket.
I'm glad you mentioned Chris Bosh right there, because he actually did step up his game in Game 4, and he was a big part of that win as well. You have to mention him for that. The big 3 actually showed up for one game, and it showed. But on the other side of the fence, the big 3 not exactly playing great basketball right now. And so we're going into Game 5. We've got Tony Parker with half a hamstring. We got Tim Duncan, who's obviously 37. And as you mentioned, Manu Ginobili, he's in Argentina right now. He's not playing in San Antonio. His mind seems to be elsewhere. I don't know what's going on with him. And there's these rumors circulating that he may retire after this season.
Well, he definitely looks like he's at the end of his rope, right? He looks like there's not much gas left in that tank. I think they're kind of lucky because his replacements are already there in Danny Green.
Right.
So he doesn't need to step up as much, but he is kind of the heart and soul. And the truth be told, where he really comes in handy, and we went over this watching last game, is when Parker goes out of the game, which, hopefully everyone's healthy, but could happen. He's one of their primary ball handlers.
Right.
And he distributes, so he needs to be on point. He at least needs to have the confidence to make those good passes. And you can't just, if he's not shooting, they're going to slack off him. Mm-hmm. So he needs to keep them a bit honest. Like, Manu doesn't need to be 25-point a game, Manu, but at the same point, he needs to deliver a little bit more. At the same point, Tim Duncan needs to score a little bit more. It's nice he's giving you your rebounds. Him and Kawhi Leonard, great rebounding numbers, almost the whole series, almost the whole playoffs. Mm-hmm. But you need some inside scoring. You can't live and die by the 3-point. I mean, it worked with the Magic, with Dwight Howard and co., but Dwight Howard would give you 20, right? Mm-hmm. So you need a little bit more inside presence. But what I'm really excited about is, and we saw it last game, even in the loss, was the continued development of Kawhi Leonard. That ball handling, the blocks, but his passing is so good. He'll go in, he's pure Greg Popovich style, unselfish, hit the open guy. But yeah, that inside scoring has to improve for this to continue.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green really both stepping, and Gary Neal, of course, too, all stepping up this series. Kawhi is 21 years old. He's poised well beyond his years, and he's growing into a great kind of Bruce Bowen-esque position. But beyond that, he plays more than just defense. He shoots more.
I think it's going to be way better than Bruce Bowen by the time this whole thing's over.
Exactly, and you have to remember, Bruce Bowen only grew into that role in his late 20s. Kawhi's 21, and his potential is just, for me, out the roof. And when Greg Popovich calls you the future face of your franchise, you know that he has these raw skills that are just growing and showing in front of us. It's just seeing him grow into the player that he can potentially become in the NBA Finals is just an amazing sight to see for a franchise like San Antonio. And the future's bright for these guys, as you mentioned before. And,
absolutely. Well, he's got the athleticism, length, basketball IQ, and the intelligence to pick up, and he's being coached from an early point by one of the best coaches in basketball, under some of the best veterans to learn under. I mean, even if he doesn't stay in San Antonio, these building blocks, as you've said, is going to secure him the ability to be someone special for years to come.
Okay, so one very interesting kind of subplot going on right now is Tony Parker's hamstring. He announced either this morning or yesterday, and this is kind of shocking to me, that the doctors told him that his hamstring can tear completely at any time, and that even if he sat for 2 or 10 days, that could happen. So basically, he's laying everything on the line. He's 31 years old. He's basically still in his prime. And I have to harp back because, I'm a big fan of the history of the game. And in 1970, Willis Reed for the New York Knicks had a really screwed up knees. He did the cortisone shot, everything, and played in Game 7 of the finals. It was like one of the most memorable moments in NBA Finals history, but he was never the same player again. So I don't know what Tony Parker's doing here. It's hard to put yourself in his shoes, but you have to respect that he's trying it. I hope everything works out, but man, this is a difficult situation for him to be in.
Well, he's just got to make sure to stay warm, and hopefully it'll be interesting. Because Greg Popovich for the last couple of seasons has liked to push the pace,
right?
And that's going to be tough. I think Miami's going to try to expose that hamstring, but they have the luxury of having enough guards that they can play without. Like we saw them play without him for a bit. They're not better by any regard. They're worse, but it's not as drastic a loss as some teams losing their point guard. They have a lot of very heady players. Boris Diaw can still handle Ginobili. There are some people who can get it done. I think it's going to be a big deal because what they're really missing is his penetration. His penetration and kickouts allow those 3-point shooters to really develop and
the
to
pick
get
and roll too. The pick
exactly.
and roll. That's his masterful play. So if they don't have that, it's hard to get Timmy more involved in the game. So, everything runs through him. But as you said, Manu Ginobili, he can do these type of things when he's playing his game. He just has to get into his own groove.
Yeah, well, and at the same point, I think Tony Parker realizes that, as you said with Dwayne Wade, there's not this incredible window of opportunity for him in this team, right? Like as good as Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green are going to be, there is going to be a significant drop off once Duncan leaves. And because they have to replace the big man, like as he can turn right away into like a DeMar DeRozan type scorer, including his defense, and it still won't be enough to get them to that level. So I think he realized that this season, maybe next, it's kind of it. Like he might stick around for a bit. He can still play at a high level, but his ability to have a team that goes deep into the playoffs with him, I think he's realizing it's coming to the end. So I think there's a sense of urgency. So like he was even quoted on saying that so if this was the regular season, I would be resting, but now it's the finals. If I get a tear, it's life.
Yeah.
So
like I said, it's pivotal. Everything about this game is pivotal. The one statistic is that when it's tied up 2-2 since 1985, the winner of Game 5 has won 20 of 27 games. So it's huge. It's huge.
Okay.
And last game in San Antonio. Last game at the Alamo.
Last game at the Alamo. So if you have to have to guess for Game 5,
oh man, you know what? I haven't really thought about it till right now. Tony Parker's hamstring really is the question mark. I'm gonna say Miami by 2.
I'm gonna say it's a last gutsy hurrah. I think San Antonio takes this. I'm less certain about my Game 6 San Antonio's prediction because of this injury, but I think San Antonio pulls off this one because I think they realize you cannot go into Miami down 3-2 and have the next 2 games in Miami, and Miami does not lose 2 games in a row. So it's a little tough. I think they have to win, and I think Parker, because he realizes it could pop at any time, is just going to go all out and just be like, if it happens, it happens, right? Because, if you're injured, he might play a little gimpy if he's a little more worried, but at this point, it's kind of like, what are you going to do, right? Like, I think they're going to try to keep it warm. There's going to be a personal trainer with him at all times, but at the same point, I think it comes all out, and I think we're going to see a big game. It's the same thing. I don't see the Spurs playing 2 bad games in a row. Like the same with Miami. Like this is such a chess match at this point. I think San Antonio takes this game, but I really hope it doesn't come at the expense of Tony Parker, because without him, especially a man who's playing, I don't see it.
Yeah, and in any NBA Finals, you want to see everybody playing. And as I've been saying to everyone, it's been one of the best NBA Finals I've seen in years, and it's just we're all winners here. The
thing is, they're complaining online that they're like, does anyone care? It's small market San Antonio.
What?
I'm like, I've been seeing enough reports about this, and I'm like, how do you not care? How many stars are in these finals? Duncan, T-Mac, Ginobili, Park. Juwan Howard. But no, it's if you're a basketball fan, it's one of the best. Because how many times have we seen finals where it's just blowouts? I mean, I was getting sick of the finals for a couple of years there, because every final would just be like the West would take it 4-1 or whatever would happen depending on the series. But this is an even keel game. I mean, you can't ask for much better. Storylines on both sides, star players, Wade and Parker dealing with injuries, playing through it, coaches making defensive adjustments, ragtag players who wouldn't get a chance on other teams like McGrady and Birdman getting chances, big franchise guys at the end of their career, guys who need to step up like Bosch and Ginobili. I mean, this is kind of like, I'm not sure if Martin Scorsese could have written it better at this point. It's a hoops fan's dream.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I couldn't ask for anything more. Every game's completely different. You go away scratching your head and say, wow, I didn't expect Dwayne Wade to be Dwayne Wade again. I didn't expect Tony Parker to get injured, but he hit an amazing shot to win Game 1. And honestly, LeBron James has not had that superpower, superhuman, Superman, Man of Steel game yet. And we could see that any game now. So watch out for that.
Well, if there's one big game he should have, it's the game tonight.
Yeah.
Because tonight, honestly, if he can superpower them into a win, you may as well start fitting those rings.
Yeah. So let's change gears for a second and go over to coaching. Last week on the show, we were talking a bit about a man named Jason Kidd, and it looks like our prediction was pretty good that he'd end up being coach over with the Brooklyn Nets. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, my first thought was we should start, taking JoJo's Psychic Alliance job, because we kind of called this coaching job. And if you want to watch a recap, obviously we have all our podcasts on our site, hoopslunch.com. But Jason Kidd saying he wants to come into coaching, and he lands with the Nets a 3-year deal. Because what's weird about it, he's actually friends with Deron Williams, and he thinks he can get, the train going there. And once you get the head on the snake going, Deron Williams, in my mind, is still a top 3 point guard. I really think this guy's talented. 6'3", steals, can post up. Anyways, and there's enough talent in that team. So it'll be interesting, though, with zero coaching experience. But you have to say he was a player coach for most of his career, especially in New York there. I think it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be tough, man.
It's going to be tough. And I wanted to mention on our website, we have a great new writer named Shahab Khan, and he wrote a piece on hoopslounge.com about the opposite side of the fence, why he should not be coach of the Nets. So check that out. It's a very hard-hitting piece. Not an easy read, but
we like to cover both sides of the story, right? The pros
absolutely.
And the cons. Got to cover all hoops.
But speaking about coaching, Doc Rivers is in the news lately. Talks of him and possibly a big chunk of the Celtics franchise going over to Clipperland.
Yeah. Oh, it's the big talk. Doc Rivers still having 3 years left in his deal, but seeing kind of the light at the end of the tunnel with that Boston franchise, kind of like I was just alluding to with San Antonio. But they're still in the playoffs. Boston losing the first round, I think they're ready to kind of clean that up, especially after Ray Allen jumped ship to their rival Heat.
Yeah.
But Doc Rivers, he's being wanted by the Clippers. Clippers letting go Vinny Del Negro a couple of years too late, I felt. I don't know why he was a coach there. But the talk is that he would only go, or they kind of want Kevin Garnett too. And even Paul Pierce's name is in this rumor bag. The thing is, the key piece coming back from the Clippers would be DeAndre Jordan, nice young big man. So the Celtics would get him. But the linchpin here is Eric Bledsoe so far. The Clippers don't want to give a young Eric Bledsoe and a young DeAndre Jordan for an almost retired Kevin Garnett and a coach. And the reason is actually not what you'd expect. It's not because they want to keep him. It's because they can feel they can package him for another trade. And I've actually been hearing what they're trying to do at the same time, which is kind of interesting. We'll see if it happens, is to package Eric Bledsoe with Blake Griffin, as much as you would never think he'd be traded, for Dwight Howard. Now, this brings up a whole nother story. Like, would you trade down the hall? Lakers, Clippers, I don't think they'd do that. But, Chris Paul saying he wants to go play with Dwight Howard. Rumors have been circulating with the Atlanta Hawks, with the Dallas Mavs. But Chris Paul really likes being in LA. So bringing over, Dwight Howard, it's interesting because if it wasn't the kind of brotherly love of the Clippers and Lakers, this is a good basketball trade. If you're the Lakers and you're like not sure about how Dwight Howard's handling, you get a young Eric Bledsoe and a young DeAndre Jordan. if it wasn't those teams, I think they'd be saying yes right away. And it's funny, like, are they going to let personal animosity between the two teams get in the way of a smart basketball decision on both sides?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. And to get back to the very beginning there, I think it's fascinating because talking about the Celtics, Doc Rivers, Kevin Garnett, and Paul Pierce. Doc used to play for the Clippers at the tail end of his career. Kevin Garnett, for a very long time, I think maybe over 10 years, has lived in Malibu, California, which is near LA in the offseason. And Paul Pierce grew up in Los Angeles. So seeing them go back, Kevin has like hinted over the years of wanting to play in LA, so I don't see this as a shocking situation. For me, it's always weird to hear about a coach being traded because you more hear about players. But
the thing is, you can't really trade him, but he still needs to get out of his contract. Right. So the Clippers would have to okay that, and I think that's the reason they're trading, because they want to give the Clippers enough incentive in that Garnett or possibly Garnett and Pierce deal to tell the Clippers, okay, you're rebuilding, here are your pieces, let them go.
And like you said, the linchpin being Eric Bledsoe, he's a really great, talented young player, probably the best backup point guard in the league, very athletic, can jump out of the roof, but very heady, savvy player. And, we could be seeing a Boston Celtics team that's completely different going into the regular season. So we'll see what happens there. And as you mentioned about Dwight Howard, there was a precedent a few years back. Kobe Bryant almost got traded to the Clippers from the Lakers. So it's never really happened, but, it'd be interesting playing in the same building because they literally play in the same building, Staples Center. So
Well, it kind of almost happened. I remember Lamar Odom went from the Lakers to the Clippers. It was a kind of free agency thing. But what was interesting, you actually mentioned Kevin Garnett with the Clippers. Did you know before Pau Gasol got traded to the Lakers, they were actually looking at Kevin Garnett at the end there.
Really?
And Kevin Garnett was almost a Laker with Kobe Bryant. But then I think Garnett said no to the trade. I forgot the exact reasoning, but it was almost done. And this was Garnett before he went to Boston, so it was still pretty productive. Garnett would have been with imagine the defensive intensity of having Kobe and Garnett on one team.
Wow. One thing I have to mention about player relationships, Kevin Garnett and Chauncey Billups are very close friends from the Minnesota Timberwolves days. So I think that's a big factor in him wanting to play there as well. So a lot of change is going to be going in this offseason. I'm hearing Danny Granger's name being thrown all over the place too. So I think there'll be a lot of shifting around the NBA, which is great. I'd like to see kind of the balls juggling and people ending up in quite unique and mysterious places. So
I think that part's always fun. Like myself as a basketball fan, the parts I like the most, weirdly enough, are this rumor mill draft kind of thing. Like, I like the movement. I like the intensity. I like the what ifs, right? Of what could happen when this player, as you said, goes to this team and totally changes the makeup. I think there's a lot to be had. Like, I think if the league was a league where we saw almost no movement, it'd be tougher to be a fan sometimes because you'd see the same teams, but it would kind of get repetitive. But here we saw, Carmelo Anthony going from the Nuggets all the way to the East, then going to the Knicks, and the Knicks going from this D'Antoni system to kind of this isolation system, and then this and this. And we're seeing, franchises changing their whole core values almost yearly. And it's interesting because it's kind of become like this soap opera of basketball. But I think it's fun. I think the whole rumor mill, the what ifs, I mean, you're looking on Twitter, you're looking on online blogs. People love talking about this, and I think these things are important for the league.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and I mean, I like guys staying, like a Tim Duncan staying with the franchise forever. But the musical chairs is always interesting as well. So we've only got about 2 minutes left here, so we have to mention some wonderful local news here in Montreal. The NBA Canada Series, which was inaugurated last year, is coming back to Montreal. We're going to have a game. This is amazing. The Minnesota Timberwolves versus, look at your shirt, the Boston Celtics. They're going to be playing here in Montreal at the Bell Center on October 20th. It's going to be a great event, and we here at Hoops Lounge are going to be involved. We're going to be doing a contest with Eventco. We'll have all the details on hoopslounge.com in the coming days, and it's just great to have ball back in the city. Everyone's super excited. I mean, so much basketball love in our city. I mean, what were your thoughts when you heard about that?
Well, as soon as I heard about it, first of all, I'm like, because I kind of expected if they were going to come back to have Toronto be the team again, have the Canadian city. But first of all, I was like, 2 U.S. teams. I'm like, to me, that's big news. Because to me, they don't need that Canadian tie every time. And, Boston Celtics, we were just talking about all this trade kerfuffle. So it's kind of a toss-up what team we're going to see. And then a Minnesota Timberwolves team with hopefully a healthy Ricky Rubio. They got a fairly high draft pick this year, and a renewed Kevin Love. I saw Kevin Love's interview on ESPN. He's really into making this work with the Minnesota Timberwolves. So hopefully he comes back and gets to play. I think this is going to be a really fun game. I think this speaks to how much the NBA loves Montreal as well. I think they saw what a good show Montreal hosted when the Raptors played the Knicks, and they wanted to repeat it. And I think this is just great news. And as an NBA fan, a local game, how could you say no?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the NBA is going to be back here in Montreal actually in 2 weeks from now for NBA 3x3-on-3 tournament. So there's a lot of Montreal connections and Canadian connections with the NBA. And you can see the sport growing in our country, and it's just absolutely amazing. So, I mean, as always, the show has gone by so quickly. We got to wrap up here. But just to mention to everybody one last time, our Twitter handles are I'm Montreal Mark with a C. He's Sporting Phil. And our website is hoopslounge.com.
Exactly. Hoopslounge.com, as can be seen right here. You can visit all of our spaces. You can see all our videos, all of our articles, podcasts. There's pictures, contributors, and anything more. And as always, there's a bunch of ways to follow us. And yep, this is your one-stop shop for hoops.
Yeah, and our Facebook too. Go on there, like us if you like. And we always put in great articles and having great polls and conversations about the game around the clock. Facebook.com/hoopslounge. And catch us anytime on Twitter. You can email us too. All the info's on our website. So I wanted to thank everybody again. Thank you, Phil, for being on the show today.
Hey, as always, a pleasure. I just wanted to show quickly the Hoops Lounge site.
Our Facebook page.
I'm not sure if that's showing backwards there, but
yeah, and there's some great photography. I mean, we've been doing all kinds of community work around the city. We've got a lot of things going on. So, like I said, Phil and I, we're building a great team together, Hoops Lounge. One of our writers is in Toronto. If you want to join the team, feel free to reach out to us. We're always looking for talented people who love basketball.
Yep. So thanks as always for joining us, and we'll catch you next time in the lounge.
See ya.